Okay, so this is a report from before I left my hometown in Orlando, Florida. It was on a Friday, August 23rd, 2019 at 4:43 p.m. I found it to be very, very valuable because a lot of it, when you look at it now or when I would read it now, doesn't seem so big of a deal. But it was in what it was indicative of was a shift and a turn in the city. And a lot of the conditions started to actually sound a lot like New York City. What makes it so different is that it's not New York City. And so for certain shift, it's almost like it will lock you out of the city if you're a person without means. Okay, and then maybe you came into the city with means and came to lose those means, that this would be the reality that awaits you. This is also a report from the heart, of Florida. And when I'm up north and it's all of this glorification and milk and honey fantasies of the South, to give a greater depiction of some of the conditions in which led me here. Now, of course, I look at these things and think now, like, hey, this shit was a cakewalk, right? But in its regard, it still was pressing and very important for me to get into a foundation where I could establish myself regardless. And so let's share this. I love digging up old work. The city of Orlando is under fire on a scale I've never seen in all of my 30 years living here. I still recall a time of simplicity in the city and the joy and pure vibes of the exchange downtown, where me and my sisters would go and play video games at the arcade. Since then, there has been an eerie shift in the city, with more of an emphasis being focused on the gay and Hispanic community almost exclusively, not only at the cost of the city's natives, but to our peril. I've never seen record numbers of homelessness, physical and mental debilitation, drug addiction. One can literally feel the depression, despair, and drear in the air. Upon closer inspection of our so called black community in Orlando, this is what was found. There were days this summer where the humidity surpassed 100 degrees. Neighborhoods which were once, now keep in mind, if it's that hot, it's going to require of you to be somewhere. It's not a city that is hospitable in that way. You have to have transportation and means. And so neighborhoods which were, you were once free to roam, began locking all of their gates and recording all activity, which unnerved me as it came across as intrusive of my basic right to exist. From there, I began noticing how the city began removing all bus stop seats, but only within the black community. And restaurants like McDonald's had begun shutting down drinking fountains, requiring guests to come to the counter for every refill. They had also began handing out water in record numbers, and instead of addressing the issue clearly of the heat and a lack of clean water with people, they would just hand you a cup of pre-filled water with melted down ice from a side counter. Very demeaning on so many levels, to say the least. But hey, we were used to it. Everything was pointing to the fact that we were under a strategic attack by our very government. Food stamps and shelter programs were non-existent. And the best it got was a hot and a cot at the Mission for maybe 2 to 3 nights before you would start being charged $10 a night. This was a city where it cost to be homeless. We also had some hidden and some not so hidden growing tent cities and communities. And on top of everything, the weather was going from one extreme to the next, sometimes all at the same time, shifting from blazing hot to where it felt as though the sun was beaming from a magnifying glass to raining so hard that everything flooded. It was as if the weather even was tormenting and torturing us. And I imagine that this is what it looked like when a city was entirely out of resources. Hurricane Katrina came to mind, and the only ones to truly suffer are the poor. That is from ground zero, guys. And so there's a lot that I've endured where I am, but I will not regress.